Welcome to another edition of Fault Lines. Viewers, I'm Gauri Dwivedi, and this week the big story on Fault Lines is Iran's protests that are spreading like wildfire. Is it now time up for its supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei? We talk about that. The next story this week on Fault Lines, the ice firestorm that is in the US after a 38-year-old woman was shot dead in Minnesota, who, by the way, was born in America. And then we tell you in Ukraine why the secret operations head has been sacked and what's the politics behind it. But first up, the big story that we are tracking straight up, we take you to the action in West Asia, where Iran is on the edge. Streets are filling, protests are spreading across cities and inside small towns. The chants against the supreme leader are only growing louder. The economic shock turned nationwide eruption now stretches all the way from Tehran's Grand Bazaar to university campuses and Kurdish towns in the west. This is Iran's second biggest unrest since 2022. And unfolding just months after a bruising war abroad. And it exposes deep cracks at home. First, we take you through what is really happening right now, and then we tell you Iran's protest culture, rooted in the 1979 Islamic Revolution. It keeps returning to the streets, but I'm going to tell you why this time is different.
It started with the currency, the Iranian rial crashing to nearly 1.45 million to the dollar. The development wiped out purchasing power overnight. Then came the shutdowns. Tehran's fabled bazaar, the very heart of Iran's economy, closed its shutters. It was a rare and powerful signal the Islamic regime overlooked. Within days, the unrest spread. Students, workers, shopkeepers. More than 110 cities and towns across all 31 provinces are now touched by protests. Security forces moved in with tear gas and pellet guns.
ما با معترض حرف میزنیم، باید حرف بزنن مسئولین با معترض، اما با اغتشاشگر حرف زدن فایده ای نداره. اغتشاشگر رو باید به جای خودش نشاند.
Rights groups say at least 36 people are dead, over 2,000 arrested. Among the victims, children. What makes 2026 different is who is leading. Not activists, not politicians, but traders. The bazaris, once loyal to the system, they are now openly defiant. Inflation is nearing 40%. Food prices are up more than 70%. Sanctions are back in full force after last year's war with Israel and the US.
دولت یه مصوبه ای رو داره که در اون مصوبه بنا شد که به همه خانوارهای ایرانی تاکید میکنم هم ساکن ایران باشن و هم ایرانی باشن به ازای هر فرد خانوار 1 میلیون تومان در ماه تعلق بگیره.
The government is offering cash subsidies, just $7 a month. But the same government is warning protesters to know their place. But Iran's streets are answering back. Bureau Report, NDTV World.
Now, viewers, these protests may look sudden, but they are the latest chapter in a long story of resistance. To understand why Iran keeps returning to the streets, we have to go back decades. Moments that turned Iran's streets into its loudest political voice. Let's put that out first and foremost in terms of where all it happened. First up, in 1979, of course, is when the Islamic Revolution took place, where about 2,000 to 3,000 people were killed and thousands were detained. But that's just one aspect of Iran's protest culture. In 1999, there was a student uprising that took place where about 4 protesters were killed, anywhere between 1,200 to 1,400 people were detained. Remember, a lot of these statistics, one has to rely on reports because Iran is not open to global media the way other countries are. In 2009 was the Green Movement, where over 100 people were dead. and 4,000 people were detained. These are again reports that came in that happened in 2009. In 2019 is when there was a fresh revolt that took place. 300 people were killed that time. Over 7,000 people were detained. Then comes the 2022 inflection point, the anti-hijab protest that rocked Iran, where about 500 people were killed, 20,000 were detained, when women came out and said that they cannot be told how they should wear their hair. But it didn't stop there. Now these protests that are engulfing Iran, 111 cities are now under Iran's protests in some form or the other, where 34 people have been killed till now, and about 2,000 people on the upper end of the average of the data that we have been detained so far, even as the protest continues and spreads across the country. Now, if you take off your blinkers to understand what really is happening, this time these protest viewers are different. When there's no food on the table, when inflation is 45%, when the currency has a run, then ideology takes a back seat. No amount of policing can hold back a people that are struggling for 2 meals on the table for themselves and their family. And what's the Ayatollah Khamenei regime bothered about? How women are wearing their hair. But that doesn't matter this time around anymore, because even the most ardent supporters of Khamenei are now backing these protests. Those who weren't doing so in 2022 are joining on the streets. Take a look, some of those videos that are coming in that tell you exactly how women, even the most conservative ones, are now part of this. And let's be clear, this will not end suddenly. There will be bloodshed, possibly more than the one that the world saw during the anti-hijab protests in 2019, when estimates were much higher than what the official data suggests. But the number this time could be higher. And let's remember, there are 2 variables to how this may end. The first and most important variable is when and in what form Donald Trump's administration will intervene into what's happening in Iran. And the second important variable is that the clarion call may have been given by Raza Pahlavi, where thousands took to streets. But the larger question is, do Iranians want to return to monarchy, or do they now want a democratic republic where they have a say in how their country is governed? And that will dictate which way Iran goes from here. Next up on Fault Lines, viewers, is a chilling number, a grim milestone. 2025 is now the deadliest year for ICE custody deaths in more than 2 decades of the authorities acting in America. Watching a record that last was seen in 2004. 32 lives have been lost, men, women from around the world. Some new arrivals seeking refuge, others who had lived in America for decades. All died while being in federal immigration custody. This as enforcement surged, detention centers filled, and oversight came under intense scrutiny. We break down what exactly happened, when it escalated, and why 2025, when Donald Trump is in office, has stood apart. First up, let's get you some of those numbers that really best tell you how things stack up in 2025 as against the years before that. 32 deaths in custody, not a small number. These are not numbers. These are not statistics. These are people. These are families being broken because of somebody deciding to act in haste. Deadliest since 2004. 22 years it's operated. What happened this year? The only thing many people are able to put together is this was a year when Donald Trump administration came to power, and this is part of their core governance agenda. 68,440 people have been detained mid-December, till mid-December. Of which, now this is very important, of which 75% did not have a criminal conviction, which means 3 out of the 4 people that I just mentioned did not have a criminal conviction. On what basis were they chosen? On what grounds were they identified? What is the criteria that is undertaken and followed by these authorities? Those are the questions, because unless they are not driven by data, then there's discretion, and whenever there is discretion, there is scope for error. And that's exactly what happened in the case of Rini Good as well. Now, as you see, in 2025 alone, ICE held nearly 75,000 people at once, 3/4 with no criminal convictions. Mind you, deaths came from heart failure, seizures, strokes, tuberculosis, and some also committed suicide. December became the deadliest month. Advocates warn overcrowding, delayed care, They are turning detention centers into danger zones. ICE insists that death rates remain low. Critics say that these numbers don't tell the human stories. Let's now trace the history of ICE, the flashpoints that shaped it, and how this year, the one that just went by, 2025, became a year that will be remembered for all the wrong reasons. Take a look.
You're criminal! You're criminal!
To ICE, get the out of Minneapolis.
Who keeps us safe? We keep us safe!
It began as enforcement, it has now transformed into a reckoning. Immigration and Customs Enforcement was created in 2003. It was born out of the post-9/11 security overhaul designed to protect borders, enforce immigration law, and remove threats. But from the start, enforcement collided with controversy, and deportations were the first massive flashpoint.
You shot someone! You shot someone!
During the Obama years, ICE carried out record removals, peaking at more than 400,000 deportations a year. This earned the administration the label deporter-in-chief. Then came the second flashpoint, family deportations. In 2018, under President Trump's first term, ICE enforced the zero-tolerance policy. It separated thousands of children from parents at the border. These images of children in detention ignited global outrage. The biggest flashpoint and the most contentious, detention centers. For years together, advocates have warned of overcrowding, poor medical care, and deaths in custody. Talk about hunger strikes or lawsuits. ICE facilities have become flashpoints, with critics arguing detention has well outpaced oversight. Then came 2025. As enforcement ramped up, detention numbers rose. Facilities filled faster than systems could respond. 32 people died in ICE custody, highest in 20 years. Some were asylum seekers, some long-time residents, some died of heart failure, seizures, strokes, others just by suicide. Families say cries for help went unanswered. ICE disputes these claims, says care was provided and death rates remain low. But December alone saw 6 deaths, the deadliest month of the year. Clearly now, it's more about responsibility than just safeguarding borders. Bureau Report, NDTV World.
Irina Sukuman joins me on the broadcast. She's a human rights and national security attorney. Irina, thanks much for speaking to me on Fault Lines. Let me start by asking you, a 38-year-old woman, mother of 3, shot at on point-blank distance, even though some conflicting reports may be coming in about the sequence of events. The question is, how is now the family of Renee Good going to get justice, and who will give her justice?
Thank you so much. Unfortunately, this is not the first time someone died in police custody or as a result of federal enforcement action. Actually, the next day after this incident, federal agents apparently lethally shot 2 individuals in Portland. Lawsuits are not uncommon in such situations. Essentially, the families of the deceased or in some cases survivors of police violence sue the local authorities, or in this case it's going to be the federal government. Whether or not these lawsuits will be successful depends on the fact-finding.
Irina, now is this the new template as far as the Trump administration is concerned? They're going to go after whoever they think is not or whoever they think is radical enough, aligned to the left, even though no proof is given? Is this the new template?
It seems to me that what the Trump administration said and what it's doing are 2 different things, because their explicit comments were that they would only be, that in the phase 1, the first year or so of ICE enforcement, they would be targeting only people with criminal records, or at least violent criminal records and other criminal records. Also, they claim that they would only be targeting people involved in illegal activity during the protest. But it seems to me that hiring ICE agents who are not properly trained may be a factor more than any broad policy decision. It may be that you have people who are volunteers who do not have law enforcement background, who are not trained in the use of non-lethal force during detentions, and who then overreact to incidents that would otherwise be handled differently.
You know, which brings me to ask that there is videographic proof. There are now also eyewitness accounts, all of which seem to suggest that the ICE, authorities who came in, they acted in haste, and some say they actually targeted Rini Good. The point is, how does now ICE operate going forward? And if this is how it's going to operate, what should those who are going to be at the receiving end of this do about it? Can they take legal recourse? What is it that they can do?
Of course, individuals who are not involved in any sort of violence against the law enforcement can pursue legal action. But of course, the problem is legal action may take years. It's also expensive to do, even as class action lawsuits against the federal authorities. And by the time they get around to settling on any sum of money, the Trump administration may likely be gone from office, and so it's going to be on taxpayers rather than anyone from the administration to serve out any financial relief in terms of any sort of criminal justice to specific individuals. That's going to be a difficult line to pursue because DOJ obviously has no interest in highlighting any sort of abuses or negligence.
Irina, very quickly, finally, I'm asking you this, that this is a year when midterm elections will take place later in the year. For Donald Trump's core voter base, the MAGA base, the crackdowns on illegal immigrants is very important. And one expects ICE to probably build up on this going forward. Do you think so?
I think that will be the way that the Trump administration will try to cater to its base. But quite frankly, I don't think that's going to serve them well in the midterm elections. I think even some in the MAGA camps are concerned about the way this is being handled. It's also having the crackdowns are also having economic consequences because people who are not violators of laws are being pursued. Green card holders, people who have committed no crimes or infractions are being targeted for deportation, and it's costing jobs. It's causing economic problems that are compounding ongoing tariff-related issues, and I think want to hit Trump supporters.
All right, Irina, I'm going to leave it there. Thanks much for joining me on that story. And viewers, so this brings us to the blinkers off segment on the show. By normalizing a brutal killing of a person with no criminal record, the authorities have set a dangerous precedent. Vice President J.D. Vance has suggested that Rini Good was part of a broad left-linked network, indicating that anything can be justified in the name of just saying that it was part of the radical left thought. 23 years after it was created to protect America against illegal immigrants, ICE personnel have now gone feral. Most of them do not have adequate training. Most of them are not trained to handle situations that finally led to Rini Good losing her life. The instance is a grim reminder of what it's like to be in Trump's America, what it's like to be at the receiving end of some of these policies that are now mainstreamed and so important in Trump's governance agenda. All right, viewers, on that note, I'm slipping into a very short break. Coming back on the other side, telling you more about, what's the inside track about Ukraine and the reason why one of its most coveted chiefs have been sacked. Stay with us. And finally, viewers, I take you to the heart of Zelensky's latest defense shakeup. And why is the Ukrainian president being slammed for removing his top special ops commander from office? The man who actually was part of the elite group that took down Russia's famed Black Sea fleet. What happened? This report answers that for you.
A major shakeup at the heart of Ukraine's war machine. This as the fight with Russia grinds on and peace talks hang in the balance. President Volodymyr Zelensky has replaced the heads of Ukraine's two most powerful intelligence agencies, a move drawing sharp criticism from within the country's security establishment. The directors of the SBU and military intelligence, both credited with some of Ukraine's boldest and most secretive strikes, have been removed in the largest intelligence reshuffle of the war. Among them, Kirilo Budanov, the mastermind behind the audacious drone and naval attacks deep inside Russian territory. He's now been moved into the president's office as chief of staff. It's a powerful role, but one far closer to politics than to the battlefield. Ukraine's intelligence services have stunned the world, from smuggled drones hitting Russia's strategic bomber fleet to explosive sea drones crippling Moscow's navy in the Black Sea. Operations praised by allies and feared by Russia. But critics warn this reshuffle risks disrupting active operations and may also be politically motivated. Several senior generals have publicly urged President Zelensky to reverse course, warning that the changes could fracture command at a critical moment. While lauded for battlefield success, Ukraine's domestic intelligence agency has faced accusations of targeting political opponents, allegations its leaders vehemently deny. As Ukraine prepares for a long war or a fragile peace, the intelligence overhaul exposes the tension at the core of a nation fighting for survival, where power, politics, and national security, all three collide.
With that, we wrap things up on this edition of Fault Lines. Thanks so much for watching.